Good evening, councillors, staff, members of the public. Please be upstanding for Her Worship Mayor Karen Vernon.
Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:30 p.m. and I'll declare this ordinary council meeting of the town of Victoria Park is open. I'd like to invite Councillor Daniel Minson to read the Acknowledgement of Country.
Thank you. I am honoured to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar country on the banks of the Swan River. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and respect past, present and emerging leaders, their continuing cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land, which continues to be important today. I thank them for the contribution made to life in the town of Victoria Park and to this region.
Thanks, Councillor Minson. Please be seated, everyone. Welcome everyone to this meeting and to those who are joining us on live streaming. Begin with item 2 on the agenda, which is the announcements from the presiding member. Firstly, recording and live streaming of proceedings. In accordance with Regulation 14I of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, this meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed on the town's website. Under Clause 39(1) of the Meeting Procedures Local Law, I do not give permission for any other person to record the proceedings of this meeting. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings of our meetings are also made available on the town's website following the meeting. 2.2, public question time and public statement time. There are guidelines that need to be adhered to in our council meetings, and during question and statement time, people speaking are not to personalise any questions or statements about elected members of council or the town staff or use any possible defamatory remarks. In accordance with Clause 40 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law, a person addressing the council shall extend due courtesy and respect to the council and the processes under which it operates, and shall comply with any direction by the presiding member. A person present at or observing a meeting shall not create a disturbance at the meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings, whether by expressing approval or dissent, by conversing or by any other means. When the presiding member speaks during public question time and public statement time, any person who is then speaking is to immediately stop, and every person present is to preserve strict silence so that the presiding member may be heard without interruption. As is my usual practice, we have a limit of 3 questions per person and 2 minutes per person for statements during public statement time. The purpose of these limits are to ensure that everyone who wishes to ask a question or make a statement gets a fair and equal opportunity to do so. However, if there are not many people who wish to ask questions or make statements, these particular guidelines can be relaxed and more questions may be able to be asked. No adverse reflection in accordance with Clause 56 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law. Both the elected members of council and the public when speaking are not to reflect adversely on the character or actions of other elected members or the town staff. All meetings of the council, committees and the electors will be conducted in accordance with the Local Government Act, the regulations and the town's meeting procedures local law. Now come to 2.5, which is the Mayor's report, which is a report of activities since the October council meeting. So first and foremost, I'd like to formally congratulate the newest members of our council, Councillors Scott Ingram, Andra Biondi and Jack Gordon-Manley, who were elected to council in October, and to Lindsay Miles, who was re-elected at last month's local government election. I'm delighted to officially welcome particularly our 3 new council members to your first ordinary council meeting, the first of 44, which you will attend during your 4-year term. I look forward to a productive year ahead for our council, working collaboratively with the town staff to achieve great outcomes for our community. I also tonight have a number of congratulations to share, so please bear with me, there's quite a few. I always take this opportunity at the start of meetings to give congratulations to the town, to our staff and elected members, where something comes to my attention that is worthy of note, and that is the case tonight. So, going back in the last month, on the 15th of October, the town won the Excellence in Technology and Innovation on Street at the 2025 Parking Australia Awards for our dual parking application project, Australia's first integrated multi-provider parking payment system, providing choice and convenience for consumers, competition for the application providers, and new efficiencies that have revolutionised parking management for the town. And all of that at no ongoing cost to the town or its ratepayers. So I have to extend a huge thank you to everyone past and present within the Parking and Rangers team and our partners in this dual parking application project, Oracan and Easy Park ANZ. Congratulations also go to our Manager of Business Services, who tonight is Acting Chief Financial Officer, Mr Trent Pryor, who was recognised as a finalist at those awards in the Emerging Leader of the Year category. I know how much he loves parking. And subsequent to that, on the 17th of October of this year, a number of the town's staff, Kim McMinn, Chris Martin, Lara Burford, Shania Frivet, Preston Hodge and Duncan Carr-Sanchez were honoured for their bravery at the Royal Life Saving Society of WA's awards for providing a professional and coordinated response to a medical emergency that involved a patron at our Aqualife Centre in September 2024. The actions of our staff ensured that that patron's life was saved. So we're very, very grateful and very pleased to congratulate those staff. I was fortunate to attend with our Chief Financial Officer at the presentation of the awards by the Governor of Western Australia. Then we turn to the 19th of October, where the McCallum Park Active Zone, comprising skate, BMX and basketball facilities, was finally officially opened. Although the entertainment that day was cut short by the rain, we did manage to attract a decent crowd to showcase the latest community leisure facility in our town, a much-needed boost to amenities for local families and visitors. I offer Council's congratulations to the town's project management and operations teams for all their work on this project since 2018. The number of people using the facilities daily since construction finished in the middle of this year is a testament to how good a facility it is. So, Mr CEO, can you please convey those congratulations on behalf of Council to the town staff? On the 24th of October, at the annual Vic Park Business Awards, we inducted Cafe Bella Rosa in Carlisle into our Hall of Fame, the first hospitality business to take that coveted position. Social Manor won the Business of the Year, and King's Gymnastics took home the People's Choice Award, which was voted on by members of the community. Congratulations to all the other category award winners: the Procurement Coach, Mimochi, 3MT True Value Auto, Social Manor, Empire Estate Agent Strata Management, Francis Consulting, King's Gymnastics and Motium. Now, on the 3rd of November, the town was recognised as a finalist in the 2025 Innovators of the Year Awards for our invention of the Birdwaterers, often referred to as the Cocky Trough. Congratulations go to our Birdwaterers team, including superstars Gregor Wilson, Steve Sidlowski and Rachel Guilfoyle, who have led this project almost from the outset and who attended the award ceremony along with myself and the CEO. And to every other staff member of the town of Victoria Park, past and present, who have helped to make the Birdwaterers the national success that they are today, with over 140 installations across WA and 6 birdwaterers just delivered to the city of Port Phillip in Victoria, the first council outside of WA to receive the birdwaterers. On behalf of council, we congratulate the town staff for this amazing innovation. So although we didn't win the award, we were delighted to be one of the 3 finalists and the only local government to actually feature in this year's Innovators Award for WA. On the 5th of November, I'm delighted to say that our town's Community Development Officer for Grants and Donations, Judy Toll, was named Member of the Year at the Local Government Professionals Honours Awards for making such a significant contribution to communities in Western Australia. So a very proud moment for Judy and very proud for us, and I'll ask our Chief Community Planner, Mr Doyd, to convey Council's congratulations to Judy. So, lots of announcements there. Now, in terms of the rest of the Mayor's report, I will just quickly run through those activities for the month. On the 16th of October, I chaired a meeting of the South East Corridor Councils Alliance at the City of Gosnells, where the key issues were the progress of the legal agreements for the future management and maintenance of the Metronet public realm space, and also the South East Corridor Councils Alliance Housing Forum, which is to be held in December, to showcase the opportunity for housing developments along the Armidale rail line. On 17 October, the Chief Financial Officer and I, as I mentioned before, attended the WA Royal Lifesaving Society's 2025 Bravery Awards to see our great staff be presented and honoured for their awards. Later that afternoon, I met with Amanda Dawn, MLC, from the Animal Justice Party to talk about our advocacy in opposition to the Burswood Park racetrack, local government reforms, the parliamentary inquiry into land planning and development, and also issues of cat containment and the coming review of the Cat Act. On the 18th of October, I attended the Bentley Park Social Club's annual fete at Swancare Retirement Village, and that afternoon I also held Share with the Mayor at the library. Later that evening, I attended the WA Dance Sport Championships at Curtin Stadium and presented awards to the winning dancers, which included Victoria Park locals Blake Potter and Indiana Flugie Williams. On the 19th of October, I officially opened the McCallum Park Active Zone, which is a great moment for the town. On the 20th of October, I had the pleasure of swearing in our newest elected members of council. On the 22nd of October, Councillor Melrosa and I attended the Committee for Perth's 2050 Summit, championing a plan for Perth, which was an interactive day of presentations and workshops. On the 24th of October, I attended the unveiling of the first peace poles in the town at Millen Primary School, along with the staff and Year 6 students of the primary school, representatives of the Rotary Club, and Lee Dix, the community member who moved a motion at a prior annual meeting of electors last year for the installation of these peace poles. Later that day, I had a meeting with South Perth Mayor Greg Milner to discuss Local Government Act reform and elections. That evening, I attended the town's annual Business Awards Gala along with all elected members of our council, the CEO, Chief Operations Officer and other staff, which was held at Optus Stadium. On the 26th of October, I met with the Shadow Minister for Local Government, Kiralee Waugh, MLA, member for Geraldton, to discuss Council's opposition to the Burswood Park racetrack and also Local Government Act reform. On 27 October, the CEO and I met with the Shire President and the CEO of Serpentine Jarradale to discuss their request to join the South East Metropolitan Wolga Zone. On 29 October, I attended a Burswood Park board meeting, and later that day I attended the Australian Institute of Management WA's CEO Voices Forum, a facilitated discussion amongst 4 mayors and 6 CEOs about the issues, challenges and opportunities facing local governments. On 30 October, I attended the RAC President's Cocktail Reception. The RAC and its outgoing President, Alan Blagasic, has been an active supporter of the Perth Inner City Group's 40km/h local road safety initiative, of which the town is a part. On 31 October, I was delighted to join with town staff, elected members and our community to raise the rainbow flag in celebration of the start of Pride Month in November, recognising the town's commitment to inclusion and diversity through support of members of our LGBTQIA+ community and to enjoy a social gathering afterwards. On 3 November, I joined our new councillors on the first leg of a tour of the town's facilities and major projects. That evening, the CEO and I joined staff, as I said earlier, at the 2025 Innovators of the Year Awards at Crown. On the 6th of November, in the morning, I made a short video showcasing the town to support the upcoming South East Corridor Council's Alliance Housing Forum. I then met with Jonathan Seth, who has been appointed by Council as the new chair of the town's Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee to discuss the work of the new committee in 2026. That evening, I attended a Guide Dogs WA graduation ceremony for 19 new guide, assistance facility, companion and brood dogs held at Optus Stadium, which is one of the loveliest graduation ceremonies as an elected member you ever get to attend. From the 9th to the 12th of November, I attended the Parks and Leisure Australia National Conference in Tasmania with the theme of shaping the places, programs, facilities and experiences that define the livability of our cities, neighbourhoods and communities. On 14 November, on behalf of the town, I gave evidence to the WA Parliament's Select Committee into Land Developments and Planning in Western Australia. On 15 November, I held Share with the Mayor at the library. On 17 November, the CEO and I met with the WA Police Superintendent Amber Harvey, who is the new head of the Cannington Police District, which covers the town and our local Kensington Police Station. We discussed current crime and safety issues in the town and police resourcing for local community priorities such as John McMillan Park. And yesterday evening, the same evening, I attended and presided at a citizenship ceremony where we welcomed and inducted 21 new Australian citizens from 13 countries. My thanks to Councillor Claire Anderson for being the MC for the occasion. So that concludes the Mayor's report. Item 3 on the agenda is attendance. We have all elected members in attendance and a number of the town staff led by the CEO, Mr Askew, who sits to my left and to your right. There are no apologies and no approved leave of absence. Item 4, declarations of interest. Mr CEO, do we have any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. I have a number. Item 12.1, Councillor Anderson, an impartiality interest. I'm a member of the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club Working Group and have spoken with the Hockey Club on several occasions in regard to the business case and the synthetic turf. Item 12.1, yourself, Mayor Vernon, also impartiality. I'm a member of the Hockey Working Group and have had several meetings with the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club regarding their advocacy for a synthetic turf to be built at a location within the town, including the proposal for their relocation to the Australian High Performance Hockey Centre redevelopment at Curtin University. Item 12.2, Councillor Andra Biondi, impartiality. As a candidate during the 2025 state election, I campaigned against the racetrack associated with the PESP. I also campaigned on a platform against the racetrack during the council campaign. However, I am capable of discharging my obligations to consider matters in relation to this on its merits if and when they appear. Item 12.2, Councillor Scott Ingram, impartiality. I ran as a candidate on a platform to oppose the proposed racetrack. However, I declare that I am able to adequately consider any application or matter before Council relating to that project based upon its merit. Item 12.2, Councillor Daniel Minson, impartiality. I have had communications with residents who oppose the motorsport racetrack development at Burswood Park. Item 12.2, yourself, Mayor Vernon, impartiality. I have had significant level of communication with residents who oppose the motorsport racetrack development at Burswood Park since January 2025 and have been the town's spokesperson for opposition to the racetrack pursuant to Council's February resolution. And item 12.2, Councillor Anderson, impartiality. Since the November ABF, I have received significant communication from residents who oppose the racetrack.
Thanks, Mr CEO. Now, are there any elected members who haven't declared an interest that need to do so before we proceed? Councillor Gordon Manley.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. Considering everyone's done it, I should probably declare my impartiality to the Burswood race track. I've been talking to the community and I've publicly advocated against the development of the racetrack in my own capacity and in my capacity as a candidate for the state and local government elections. I will continue to advocate on behalf of my community members, but I still can be utilising that to inform my decisions and how we make decisions upon the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon Manley. Is there anyone else who needs to make a declaration? Councillor Cruiser.
With relation to item 12.2, I have received significant communications from members of the community, both for and against the officer's recommendation.
So that's impartiality interest. Thank you. Is there anyone else who needs to make a declaration? No? All right. Well, just a gentle reminder that if you do consider you do have an interest that needs to be declared in accordance with the Local Government Act, you need to do that and bring that to my attention prior to the item becoming on the agenda for debate. And for those who've made a declaration but hadn't submitted it prior, in addition to your oral declaration, you will need to make a written declaration at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Item 5 is now public question time, so we're going to proceed with that. So I'll open public question time at 6:49 p.m. I do have a list of people in front of me who would like to ask questions. And I'm going to call those persons forward in the order in which they appear on my list. But once I've gone through the names on the list, rest assured I will open it up to everyone else in the public gallery in case you have questions, but did not get the opportunity to put your name on this list. So the list is just generally for my convenience in managing the efficiency of the meeting. So when I call your name, please come forward to the centre console. There's a microphone there. You need to press it on. It will light up red to let you know that it is working. But we do also have the council liaison officer who is there to assist you. Please state your name and your suburb. This is a requirement under our meeting procedures, local law, and then we look forward to hearing your questions. So first on the list, Thomas Trenbath.
Hi there, my name is Thomas Trenbath and I live in East Victoria Park. Do I go with my questions now?
As soon as you're ready, I'll get you to do your questions one at a time because they
Okay.
may be answered by different people rather than having you read all of your questions at once. Thanks.
Okay, not a problem. First question, in regards to the new Victoria Park skate park at Macklin Park, mulch has been chosen by the council for edge treatment around the perimeter of the park. So has that been performed in consultation with Skate Sculpture, or is that the council's parks department that have made that recommendation specifically for that landscaping material?
I'm going to direct that question to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms. Lebicus.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. The selection of mulch was guided by practical environmental and maintenance considerations. So under the dense canopy of the existing fig trees, the grass just doesn't grow successfully because there's leaf litter and poor light and such. And the mulch was used in adjacent areas, and that was the basis of selection. So consultation was undertaken with the community during that concept design, but there was not an alternative that was landed upon that gave the same outcomes for tree health, stormwater management and sustainability. Mulch remains the most effective solution to manage runoff, retain soil moisture and protect the root zones in accordance with the DBCA guidelines and the site's limited water allocation, because the water is shared between us and the state governance bridge projects. So the garden, what we tried to do as far as possible was design out the coexistence of the garden beds and to restrict them in high traffic areas. So we judged at the time that that was the best balanced approach to delivering the
for
asset.
that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have another question, Mr. Trenbath?
Yes, I do. So has the council had any feedback from the community members regarding the use of the mulch, and has the feedback been recorded?
I'm going to direct that to Ms. Lebicus.
Thank you. To date, we've received 3 written submissions from yourself about raising the risks and the concerns around it, and all have been formally recorded.
Have you received that from any other members of the public too, or just only
Mr.
the one from me?
Trenbath, you need to direct your questions to me, and
sorry.
I then determine where
Okay.
they're directed. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want to repeat that question?
No, can I ask the next question on my list?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can. Yep.
So my question number 3, is the council aware of the effects on skateboarders when they encounter mulch when they're skateboarding? So like it does jam up your wheel of your skateboard, and essentially it sends you flying off the skateboard when you encounter mulch. It's quite dangerous.
I'll just direct that question to Ms. Lebicus.
Yeah. So we are aware that there are some risks, and as I previously mentioned, that we've tried to design out from the location of the garden beds and such. Our intent was to provide a natural buffer and to reduce erosion. And so, you know, as this starts to bed in and things start to settle, we will continue to assess the site, and, you know, if we can look at alternative containment or alternate surface, then we'll work through that.
That would be amazing if that could happen. Some sort of way to contain the mulch so it doesn't just because. Can I say something? A comment or not?
Unfortunately, Mr.
No?
Trenbath, there is an opportunity for public statement time, but in our agenda, that's a separate item on the agenda. But I will actually add to Ms. Lebicus's question, since you did direct them to council. I've both received feedback from community members, including yourself, but others, about the existence and some of the problems with mulch at the site. And I believe that council is aware of the effects on skateboarders, particularly if the mulch happens to end up on the skate plaza, particularly, or on the BMX track. So we are aware of that issue, and we are looking at ways to try to keep it as clean as we can. But some pop-up discussions that have been held down at the site have also brought to our attention, including from one of the organisations who assisted us on the opening day, that mulch at the side of skate parks and pump tracks are actually eminently suitable treatments, because when you actually come off the actual plaza or the track, if you came off onto rubber softfall, you would actually continue to basically have an incident with the different surface hitting the wheels of either a skate or a bike, and usually causing the different surface friction, causing the wheel to lock or stop, and then actually throwing the person off. It has been pointed out to me that the mulch we've chosen to use is a bit on the big side, and that there is a finer granulated mulch available that causes a lot less injury to people if they actually come off the plaza or off the pump track onto the mulch. And at the moment, we've got some mulch that has some big pieces in it. But in terms of other options, grass is not seen to be quite useful for right next to the edges. But to your point about what happens when the mulch actually ends up on the skate plaza,
that's where the problem
that
is.
is a wicked problem. And we have looked at some other facilities where they actually have attached brushes and things like that, because a lot of skaters are quite happy to arrive, sweep a few things out the way, and then go about their skating.
Well, we do bring
So
down
we're
brooms and blowers.
we're looking into that. Yeah.
Can I just suggest some sort of curbing along the edge of the skate park, particularly on the riverside, so that the mulch can't just get brought in?
I think that'll be something that the Chief Operations Officer has heard your thoughts on that, but we'll certainly need to consult with our relevant engineering team about that. But thank you for bringing those matters to our attention. I appreciate it. Next on the list, Sam Zammit.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff. It's lovely to see a full gallery tonight.
Can I just get you to state your name and suburb,
Oh,
please,
sorry,
for the record,
yes,
Mr. Zammit?
I forgot it. I've lost.
It's been a while since
I've lost
we've
it.
seen you.
Yeah, I
That's
understand.
all
Yeah, Sam Zammit. Thank you.
Still St James, Mr. Zammit.
Sorry,
Still in St James, Mr. Zammit.
it's the poor side of town. I don't like to talk about it.
Well, I'm told you are the mayor down
Please.
those parts, so I wouldn't be calling it the Perth side
Please.
of town if I were you, but never mind. What are your questions, Mr. Zammit?
Listen, I bought my own bottle of water tonight. I'm not going to get charged corkage, am I? No.
Just your questions, Mr.
In
Zammit.
February, you told, or you announced on 6PR that the Motorplex project was a secret government plot to move the Kwinana Motorplex to Burswood. Do you still believe that the Labor Party is secretly planning to relocate the Kwinana Motorplex to Burswood?
Mr. Zammit, I don't believe I made any such announcement that it was a secret plot by the government. I think I recall being on radio and indicating that there appeared to be a clear reason why Burswood Park had been chosen, and there appeared to be reasons why the government might want to move the Kwinana Motorplex out of its location due to the proposed future Westport development, and that may be related to the sudden interest in Burswood Park for the racetrack. But I did not, quote unquote, announce that there was a secret plot to move Kwinana Racecourse to Burswood Park. What's your next question, Mr. Zammit?
I've got to produce the evidence. The media last month reported that the council had engaged a lobbyist to oppose the racetrack plans. Is this true? And if so, how much is it costing the ratepayers?
It's not true, Mr. Zammit. So your next question?
Did you lobby the government about it? Or?
I've been lobbying the government about this, Mr Zammit, since February 2025.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Zammit. Next on the list, Vince Maxwell.
Good evening, Vince Maxwell from Victoria Park. Just on behalf of the Ratepayers Association, I'd just like to welcome the 3 new councillors. As you said before, this is their first ordinary council meeting since the election. And also I'd like to congratulate Lindsay Miles on her appointment as the Deputy Mayor. My questions are in relation to the trees at Edwin Millen. So the Ratepayers Association has been asking about the trees removed at Edwin Millen since July, including questions at the OCM and several emails and letters sent to the staff, the CEO, the Mayor and all councillors throughout August, September and October. When did you, Mayor, first become aware that 96 trees had been removed, more than double what was specified in the adopted landscape plan?
I received my briefing on Friday the 7th of November.
That was you. Okay, thank you. The Chief Operations Officer, in a recent letter to the Ratepayers Association received last week, states that the town relied on arborist data from 2023. However, in response to our direct question in July, a staff member, who I won't mention by name, advised us in writing in September that the most recent arborist report was from 2020. So which information is correct, and will the town release the arborist reports referred to in full to clarify this discrepancy?
Well, I'm not sure that there is a discrepancy, Mr Maxwell, but I'll refer that question to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms Lubicus.
Thank you, Mayor. The baseline was 2020.
I can't hear.
The baseline data was the 2023, so that was the every year, every 2 years we do a audit of the trees through the town, and that audit was used as the basis of the design and the basis of the development applications.
So that was 2023? Okay, I'll show you the letter I've got later. But anyway. Just another question, Mayor. You, Mayor, introduced the town's strict tree protection policy under which private landowners must obtain approval to prune or remove trees or risk fines up to $200,000. What controls, monitoring systems or internal approval procedures does the town have in place to ensure that the town itself, the largest landowner, is complying with in order to protect trees on land controlled by the town?
Refer that question to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms Lubicus.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a number of processes that are currently in place where we get staff to review the health of the trees, how they're tracking, all those sorts of things in response to requests for removal. We are currently investigating what's happened in the case of Elizabeth Bailey.
Sorry, Mayor, a number of processes doesn't really answer my question. I want to know what they are.
Well, Mr Maxwell, it's very likely that the Chief Operations Officer would have to spend a great deal of time explaining all of the intricate details of the processes. My understanding is that they're all operational matters, the systems and processes the town has. I would suggest that you would get a better answer to that question if you submitted it through a letter to the town. That way there'll be an appropriate opportunity for more detail to be provided, because, as I say, I think it would just take too long to try and explain what forms need to be filled out, what process they go through. It's quite a detailed operational matter. So I think Ms Lubicus has given you an overview that there are systems and processes, but it certainly is the case that we're reviewing them as a result of what's occurred at Elizabeth Bailey Park in recent times. So that's the position at the moment, Mr Maxwell. But as I say, if you'd like to send something through in writing by email, we'll endeavour to get you a very detailed outline of how that process works.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Next on the list is Luana Lissandro.
Luana Lissandro, Lathlane, and I'd like to echo Vince's congratulations to Councillor Deputy Mayor Lindsay Miles and the newly elected councillors. My first question relates to agenda item 12.3, the library strategy, and my question is there any consideration of developing a budget for items listed as possible improvements or moving forward in the agenda?
I refer that question to the Chief Community Planner, Mr Doy.
Thanks. Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Thanks for the question. There's a lot of the things that are in the strategy can be accommodated through the existing budget of the library, but there are some things that will require a new budget, and we are contemplating which items will be put forward for a new budget as part of the next year's annual budget process. We're contemplating that at the moment.
Thank you. My second question also relates to 12.3. Is there consideration for a implementation working group to allow for community members to be a part of that process to look at improvements for the library moving forward, similar to the Urban Forest Working Group?
Mr Doy.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Thanks for the question. There's not consideration of that at the moment. It wasn't contemplated as part of the strategy, and it's not something we're contemplating at the moment.
Thank you. And my final question relates to at Elizabeth Bailey Park and the removal of trees. Is the town going to be implementing currently on the trees that are existing tree protection zones and extra watering for those trees that now have got some of their root systems basically exposed and could make them vulnerable? Thank you.
Direct that question to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms Lubicus.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your question. Yes, the answer to your question is, in short, yes. So our arborist has actually been to site, I think, on 2 occasions, due to go back tomorrow to work with with our contract partner on making sure that the trees are looked after. So yes, looking at cover, looking at watering, looking at doing some soil testing to make sure that the soils that they've put in place aren't hydrophobic. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, is there anyone else in the public gallery who has questions to ask? Because I've come to the end of the list of people. Yes, please, if you'd like to come forward and just state your name and your suburb, and then we'll look forward to hearing your questions.
Okay. Yeah, just press the button. Oh, the button's pressed. Hi, my name's Rob McGilvray. I'm from Carlisle. It's a little impromptu, so I don't have anything written down. But I'm following up on the Long Park that's just been opened. I'd like to say it's a wonderful project. And I believe at the moment the MetroNet is looking after it, and then it gets handed to the council. I'm just wondering what sort of maintenance plan you've got in place or moving forward to maintain like your pathways and your barbecues and your skate park. And
well, you're right, it hasn't been handed over to the town as yet, but I will refer that question to Ms Lubicus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. So Long Park has a comprehensive maintenance plan that sits alongside it and forms part of the agreements that we've got with PTA. So the goal was to ensure that it was maintained to a standard to allow continuity across all of that line. So that was part of the original layout. So we've got each asset item has intensity of maintenance, it has frequency of maintenance, and all of those sorts of things that come with it. and that will kick off as soon as it's handed over to us.
Okay, and do you have any idea when it might be handed over?
Not at this stage. Whilst draft legal agreements have been provided to the town, they haven't all been, I guess, progressed to the point where agreement has been reached between the parties that they're ready to be presented to council, but it will be presented to council as a public report. So there will be an opportunity for the community to read that report to council in due course, because we would need to agree to accept the ongoing liability for maintenance and replacement of those assets into the future, because it will then be our community that will need to fund that.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Of course. All right, thanks so much.
No worries, thank you. Is there anyone else in the public gallery who has questions that they would be seeking to ask? No? Not seeing anybody else indicating questions, so on that basis, I will close public question time at 7:10 p.m. Item 6 of our agenda is public statement time, which I'll now open at 7:10 p.m. Now, again, I have a list of a number of people who would like to make a statement. I'm going to call those people forward in the order in which they appear on my list, but when I have finished with that list, I will again come to the public gallery and ask, is there anyone else who'd like to make a statement? Because some of you might have come not planning to make a statement, but you've heard something that makes you feel like you would like to make a statement. So going in the order of my list to start with, Sam Zammit. So if you please come forward and again, just state your name and your suburb, and then we'll look forward to hearing your statement.
Sam Zammit. Lady Mayor, possibly this statement should be addressed to the CEO. So what do you want me to do? Address it to you or the CEO?
So, Mr. Zammit, you can just start to make your statement whenever you're ready. The CEO and I are right here, so we'll both hear it.
We bring our fluorescent cost-saving globes in here and deposit them in the provisions that you have here. Are you aware that those globes are full of, or not full, but they've got mercury in them? You're aware they've got mercury in them?
So, Mr. Zammit, this is public statement
Yeah,
time.
and I'm making a statement.
Well, Mr. Zammit, please, you're asking me a question and then waiting as though I'm going to give
Okay,
you an
well,
answer.
I'll direct my statement to the CEO through you.
Mr. Zammit, just please make your statement. Don't include any questions if you expect them to be answered, because this is public statement time, not question time. So please make your statement and you can proceed now.
The globes that are being deposited here are thrown into a box container, whatever you call it, and it has mercury in it. I believe that when the globes reach the bottom or hit each other, they are exploding and they're releasing mercury. Hello? They're releasing mercury. Those vapours are a hazard to human health.
I'm listening, Mr. Zammit, and I'm waiting with bated breath for you to continue with your
Now I've got to ask you, do you intend to change the process here?
Is that the entirety of your statement, Mr. Zammit?
It'll do for now, yeah. What sort of response I get?
Mr. Zammit, this is public statement time, not public question time. So I'm not answering questions at the moment. I'm only listening to people's
I
statements.
think you're being petty.
Mr. Zammit, I've heard your statement. So you've indicated there's nothing else for your statement to include. So thank you. We've heard your statement. Appreciate your time. Next on the list, Vince Maxwell.
Vince Maxwell, Victoria Park. The Ratepayers Association has been seeking straight answers about the tree removals at Edwin Millen since July, We raised questions at the OCM in July and sent multiple letters and emails to staff, the Mayor and councillors throughout August, September and October. Despite this, we still have not received clear information. It is now being confirmed that 96 trees were removed, more than double what was approved in the adopted landscape budget. This is a major departure from what the community was told to expect and raises serious concerns about the town's governance. We've also encountered contradictory information from the town. In July, when we asked for the arborist report that informed these decisions, staff advised us that the most recent report was from 2020. They refused to provide it and directed us to submit an FOI request. Yet in the COO's recent letter, the town now claims it relied on arborist data from 2023. These inconsistencies, coupled with the refusal to release the 2020 report, raise real questions about what information is being withheld and why. This situation is even more troubling given that the Mayor introduced the town's strict tree protection policy where residents can face fines up to $200,000 for removing or pruning a tree without approval. It is therefore unacceptable that the town itself, the largest landowner, appears not to have adequate internal controls or approval processes to comply with its own rules. The Mayor has said in media interviews that heads would roll if staff failed to follow procedures. If the CEO authorised or allowed these removals outside approved parameters, that is a serious breach. If the failure was due to inadequate oversight by council, then responsibility rests with the council. Either way, this represents a major governance failure, and because it occurred under policies championed by the Mayor and under her leadership, the community has a right to expect the same level of accountability that she demands from others. This is not just about trees, it's about trust, transparency and responsible governance. The community deserves clear answers and genuine accountability. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Maxwell. Next on the list, Jane Ardern.
Hello, Jane Arden, Victoria Park. I'm also a committee member for the Save Burswood Park Alliance. And my statement relates to item 12.2 on the agenda. I'm asking that Council do not authorise the CEO to sign the development application form, MRS Form 1, for Vic Park Drive and Camfield Drive, as has been recommended by town employees. This council has been very clear in its opposition to the racetrack, and all the individuals around the table have also campaigned and are opposing the racetrack. Any signature to facilitate the submitting of a development application, even with provisos, undermines the council's opposition and sends a mixed message to ratepayers. Facilitating the government to put in a development application to widen our roads and build a racetrack versus publicly opposing the racetrack. Council employees have identified this in their agenda report to you as low risk, but I personally think that that's wrong because it's a mixed message. Refusal to sign causes delays and complications to this government, state government. Delays are what we actually need to continue our campaign and for the select committee to which Mayor Vernon made a submission to give them time also to report on the matter. The more delays, the better. And if you as a council can delay it, go for it, do it. Cost to ratepayers is another issue that I'd like to raise. And as things stand, this council's responsible for care and maintenance of the roads in question. And there's no agreement on maintenance and management costs once they become a racetrack. That means we pay until that changes. Now, allowing a development application to be put in and proceed and then to start discussing it, to me, is akin to having the state government say, oh, look, just trust us, we're the state and we'll do the right thing by you. And this government has focused on criticising council, has personally slagged the mayor, and it's just not acceptable that we as ratepayers are now in the position where we end up covering the costs for care and maintenance. So further, I'd like to say that the council, in looking at ways, there's a statement in your papers that says that council employees will continue to talk to the committee or the project management people to look at alternate ways forward. My suggestion would be that that the council suggests to the Major Transport Infrastructure Delivery Office and relevant ministers that they take future responsibility for care and maintenance of those roads and revert them back to the state. That'll cause a bit of confusion and ooh la la. So thank you. That's all I want to say. Please don't allow the CEO to sign it.
Thank you. Appreciate your statement.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Heather Johnstone.
Heather Johnstone, Lathlane. For the last decade, I've been championing trees and urban greening locally here in the town, as well as regionally and internationally. My work across community organisations, NGOs, local government and the private sector has given me a broad understanding of how urban forest systems function, especially the importance of relationships, communication and trust. Speaking tonight about the loss of mature trees at Elizabeth Bailey Park, which the town has stated has declined during construction and was subsequently removed. I appreciate the town publicly acknowledging this outcome. Taking responsibility is an important step. From a community engagement perspective, this incident highlights gaps in expectation setting. Residents should have been informed about which trees were within the development footprint and who is responsible for them, how they would be protected under AS 4970, the Australian Standard for Protection of Trees on Development Sites, or if the standard wasn't used, why and what protections would be used, how their condition would be monitored during construction, and what steps would be taken if trees became stressed or damaged. This type of upfront communication builds trust, reduces uncertainty, and ensures that community understands both protections and potential risks. It's fundamental to good urban forest governance. This incident occurs at a particularly sensitive moment. The town is reviewing its urban forest strategy and community confidence has dipped. Local policies, including planning policies 45 and 47, show the town's intention to protect and enhance tree canopy, yet development pressures, regional threats such as polyphagous shutthole borer and global climate impacts all create additional challenges. In this context, every tree lost has amplified significance for the community and public trust. Thank you for your time and ongoing work.
Thank you for your statement. Next on the list, Luana Alessandro.
Luana Alessandro, Lathlane. I'm going to be talking on 12.3, but also on Elizabeth Bailey. Just in relation to the libraries, I really urge that the council move some type of an amendment to allow for budget items to be put into the recommendation, and also look at why, I guess, a review that was done a few years ago on the status of the current library, that it was inadequate in size and needed to be at least 2/3 as big as what it is currently. I know it's all part of the John Macmillan Master Precinct program, and that will proceed, but I think given the fact that the council has only one public library and other jurisdictions may have, for instance, City of Canning for 90,000 and we've only got one for around 40,000 residents, it's time to kind of move some of those projects ahead. I'd urge also to look at increasing to operating on a Sunday, because obviously you've only got one location, and that may be a budgetary item that could be looked at for limited hours opening on a Sunday. In relation to Elizabeth Bailey, I was part of the initial urban forest strategy, and with Heather and Peter Melrose and also others. And I guess, we appreciate that the council has openly apologised, but I think there's steps to move forward, because this occurred also with the Lathlane Park, and that's why the urban forest strategy was developed, because we lost trees at Lathlane Park for that development, and in excess of 90 trees there as well. So I would like to see some type of remediation, and probably looking at, I know suggestion when we looked at Lathlane, we looked at a replanting ratio of 6:1, but maybe perhaps there should be at least 10:1, given that you'll get tree losses within those replantings. So on that, I'd like to urge council to be open and to bring the matter to council, and to also look at working with the Urban Forest Working Group, and to make sure that they're involved in future with those types of projects and overseeing them. I do appreciate the council, again, transparency, and I look forward to the outcome of the review. And I hope that, given the fact that the urban forest strategy will be up for review, we are progressive. We want to continue to look at the benefits, because tree canopy provides a multitude of benefits, and that also includes economic benefits within the town, meaning people stay in the town to spend their money if it's shady in high volume areas, etc., as well as the health benefits and reduction of urban heat island, given the fact that now we've got at least 2 TOD developments going through. So perhaps biophilic design needs to be reinforced in that strategy as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let you know, and for other members of the public gallery who may be interested, item 19 tonight is new business of an urgent nature, and there will be a notice of motion from myself in relation to the loss of trees at Elizabeth Bailey Park with regards to the investigation, and a subsequent public report to council for those who are interested. Now, is there anyone else in the public gallery who wishes to make a statement who hasn't already done so? Mr Trenbath, please come forward.
Do I introduce myself again?
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind, just for the recording.
Yes, Thomas Trenbath from East Victoria Park. I just wanted to just mention an item you mentioned, Mayor, in regards to the softball. That would be an incredibly disastrous item to put around the edge of a skate park. It's really not good in a skate park sense, so I'm glad you acknowledge that isn't, and that would never be an option I'd recommend. Just that area was originally grassed. It was all grass around the old skate park, you know, and I grew up in this area. I know it very well there. Something else could be done there. I'm sure there could be some grass or something else done there. I know that you're mentioning water considerations, yes, but I'm sure hopefully something else can be done. Also, I would just like to mention my support for the Burswood racetrack, just as a statement as well. I do support it going forward. I think it is a fantastic bit of amenity that we can have for the community. I know that no one else here will agree with me, but I do like it. So I just wanted to put that on record too. That's all. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Pruitt.
Jerry Pruitt, Victoria Park, also representing the Safe Burswood Park Alliance Committee. Regarding item 12.2 on the agenda tonight, the signing over of the responsibility to state government for the Burswood racetrack. I'd urge you, please do not sign this over. The population of Victoria Park has been bullied by the state government into accepting a fait accompli where the Premier has painted himself into a corner as regards the date of the race. And he needs to have those things completed in order to meet the deadlines. This is all about supercars wanting to make money at the expense of the ratepayers of Victoria Park. As Jane Arden said earlier on in her statement, the ratepayers will get left with the cost of the maintenance. Supercars have got a track record of doing this. If you choose to watch the video called Wrong Track, produced after the Newcastle debacle, you will see the terrible state that the roads and the whole parks were left in Newcastle. And supercars just moved on and made money elsewhere. They just take the populations of the places that they go to as mugs and have no care for the community whatsoever. Unfortunately, our state government seems to have been blinded by the cheque. John Kerry has accused us of being NIMBYs. And I will proudly say, yes, we are. What we don't want is noise in my backyard. We will accept things in our backyard, but not the noise and the destruction of that beautiful parkland over in Victoria Park, in Burswood Park. So please do not sign a blank cheque on behalf of the state government. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a statement during public statement time? Yes, please come forward. Robin.
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name's Robin McGilvray. I'm from Carlisle. And again, I'm not really thinking that I was going to say anything, but anyway, I just want to talk about the racetrack at Burswood. I'd like to acknowledge the work that you've done to oppose it and to discuss it and bring it to the people so they can have some choice. And I'm just going to back these people who said before that I'm asking you to please do not sign that over to the government. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a statement as part of public statement time? No? All right. I'm not seeing any hands going up or anyone indicating they wish to, so I'm going to close public statement time at 7:31 p.m. Thank you to all those who took the time to make a public statement to us this evening. We do appreciate that. Item 12.2, which relates to the racetrack, which a number of people spoke about, is coming up very soon in the agenda, but I do need to let you know that there is an item on the agenda that relates to a petition and a deputation, which is going to occur first. And so you do need to be patient. Normally I would try to bring matters forward for the benefit of the public gallery, but in this instance the petition and the deputation does need to come first. So item 7 on the agenda for elected members is the confirmation of minutes and receipt of notes from any agenda briefing forum. It's an item that requires a decision of council. The recommendation is that the council, 1, confirms the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 14 October 2025, 2, confirms the minutes of the special council meeting held on 28 October 2025, and 3, receives the notes of the agenda briefing forum held on 4 November 2025. I'm now seeking a mover and a seconder for those items, please. Yep. So that officer recommendation has been moved by Councillor Minson, seconded by Councillor Cruiser. Is there any dissent from elected members? No, there being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 8, presentation of minutes from external bodies. The recommendation here is that Council receives the minutes of the Catalina Regional Council meeting held on 21 August 2025. Again, seeking a mover and seconder, please. That is moved Councillor Minson, seconded myself, Mayor Vernon. Is there any dissent? No, there being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 9, presentations. 9.1 is petitions. We have received a petition. This one contains 40 signatures, of which town staff have verified 39 and 1 remains unverified. I'm now going to move the following recommendation: that Council 1 receives the petition from Joanne Clark requesting that the Council A install signage at both ends of Butler Lane stating access for residents and resident deliveries only. B, direct the management of the childcare centre at 184A Shepparton Road to educate staff and patrons not to use Butler Lane from Boulder Street for access or egress to the childcare centre. C, install driveway blind spot mirrors within Butler Lane to improve safety and visibility for residents exiting garages and driveways. And 2, request the Chief Executive Officer to advise Joanne Clark in writing of Council's decision following the presentation of this matter. Can I seek a seconder, please, for this recommendation? So that has been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cruiser. I'm asking elected members, is there any dissent? No indication of dissent, so declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. So that means the petition is now formally received by Council, and in accordance with our meeting procedures local law, petitions that are received by Council will now go through to a report to be prepared by the town staff, and that report will appear in a future public agenda for a future Council meeting. 9.2 on the agenda is presentations. We have none. 9.3 is deputations. We have received a request, Council, for a deputation to be presented in relation to the petition that we've just agreed to receive. So in order to follow our meeting procedures, I now need to move a motion to Council for receipt of the deputation. So I will now move that Council receives the deputation from Ms Joanne Clark, Mr Mark Fisher, Ms Nikki McKenna, Mr Mike Morley and Mr Marcus Clark on item 9.1's petition. Can I have a seconder, please, for that recommendation? Thank you. That's seconded by Councillor Minson. I'm going to formally ask, is there any dissent to the motion to receive the deputation? No, there being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, I have been informed, Mr Fisher, you're going to be making the presentation on behalf of the group. That's correct. If I could ask you to please come forward to the microphone. Just state your name and your suburb, and we'll then look forward to hearing your deputation. Under our rules, you have a maximum of 10 minutes in which to make your deputation. Yeah. If you don't need the full 10 minutes, then obviously you won't need to take it. And we do have a custom that at the end of deputations, we ask you to remain in your seat because there may be questions for you from elected members of council. You are welcome to invite another member of your group if you'd like them to join you, either to make part of the presentation or to answer the questions. But you'll let me know if you need that to be the case. Thank you. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, Mark Fisher from East Victoria Park. I'm presenting this petition about the new childcare centre which is going to be built at is being built at the end of Butler Lane. The address is 184A Shepparton Road, but the entrance is actually on the laneway. There's no other way in or out. The car park is on one side of the laneway, the building on the other. So to go back on the timeline of how this is all kicked off, in January of last year, residents were asked to give their feedback on a planning application for this childcare centre. We didn't receive any feedback at that time, but then in October last year, we noticed temporary fencing going up and building work was obviously going to be started. So Joanne got in touch with the council and discovered that approval had already been granted in May, but we didn't know. Also, we commented on the planning documents, including the transport impact statement, but the approval was granted after this document was revised, and we were never given the opportunity to look at the revised document. And finally, after we contacted the council, most of us got the formal letter to notify us of the approval, but some respondents didn't actually get this letter. Then Okay, so as I've already said, January the revised transport impact statement was approved last year. April this year, we applied to see the new revised traffic impact statement, but I did this and I was told that it was a proprietary document and it was not open to the public, but it was possible with the permission of the contractor to be able to see it. However, it took a long time, but finally in September I got the document and circulated it among the other interested residents. This traffic impact statement implies, and I'll go into more detail, that no patrons will use Butler Lane to access the childcare centre. And it also states that no transport or safety issues have been identified. We're of the opinion that our comments regarding the traffic problems and traffic safety were not taken into account in this document. Basically, the transport impact statement assumes that everyone entering or exiting the childcare centre is going to come in from Miller Street, which is where the childcare centre is basically rather than coming along the laneway past all the houses from the other end of the laneway. Now, the traffic on Miller Street regularly backs up 600 metres back from the traffic lights. And Butler Lane is very close to the traffic lights, by the way. So that's going to make it very difficult for people to get in and out of the childcare centre. It's already reasonably difficult for residents to get in and out. And I should point out that it's a laneway, it hasn't been widened, it's 4 metres wide, and it can't take two-way traffic. And there's no way to pass on the laneway. So this gives some idea of what the traffic is like. So I have a picture here of the traffic over the Miller Street Railway Bridge, looking at top left. You can see it tailing back away from Shepparton Road. That's the 600 metres or so from Shepparton Road. If we look to the right, there is, this is the roundabout just before the railway bridge. So this would be 500 metres back from Miller Street, and the traffic is backed up there. And then you can see just that the traffic coming out of Butler Lane, it's very difficult because there's no gaps left to get out. There's traffic all the way past. Now, this is a bit difficult without a laser pointer, but I'll try and get through it. So the transport impact statement says that traffic from the northwest and southwest will be, before I go into this, I should point out that there's going to be a barrier installed on the median strip that will stop anyone turning right into Butler Lane or out of Butler Lane. So everyone will have to come in left and out left. So if we look at the green part, that's the AM peak, which is mostly what I'm talking about. Those photos were for the AM peak. So they're assuming that anyone coming from the northwest and the southwest, that is from Shepparton Road, from the city or from the other side of Miller Street, is going to turn, go along Miller Street and then go right up to that roundabout and then come back again and join that traffic jam. If they're coming the other way, then similarly they'll come up Carnarvon Street and join the traffic jam. Now, so that's what the traffic consultant said. This is what we think will really happen. Patrons from the northwest and southwest, coming from the other side of Miller Street or coming down from the city, they will realise they do not want to drive down Miller Street for 500 metres, then get in a 500 metre traffic jam and then sit in traffic for 10 minutes. No, what they will do is they will continue down Shepparton Road, turn left into Boulder Street, which has no traffic. You can't quite see it on this photo, but it's just at the bottom of the photo. And then they'll come up the length of Butler Lane and enter into the childcare centre. And again, it said due to the width of Butler Lane, from the southeast, they're assuming to come from along Carnarvon Street. Again, I'm sure that once people have seen how bad the traffic is in Miller Street, instead of going all the way down Carnarvon Street, they'll turn left into Boulder Street and then right into Butler Lane, travel the length of Butler Lane, and then access the childcare centre. And I can tell you, I know this from experience. It used to be Aveling. They used to do training for people getting blue cards for building sites, and they used to regularly drive down the laneway, even though Aveling told them not to. And one of the reasons that this is such a big safety issue is because you cannot see when you're exiting your driveway in Butler Lane. Just look at the photos here. You can see the fence comes right down to the laneway, so until you've got most of your car across the threshold, you cannot see, as you can see from the middle photo. And similarly, because the fencing is so tight, my neighbour at 29 Butler Lane can't even turn right to go towards Boulder Street. They must turn left. So it is really awkward, and it would be impossible to have more traffic in this laneway. So what we're asking for is to separate out the residential part of Butler Lane and have signage at both ends stating no entry, access for residents and resident services only. To direct the management of the childcare centre to make sure the staff and the patrons don't enter or exit the centre from Butler Lane via Boulder Street. Install those blind spot mirrors to help people see when they're coming out of their driveways. And we're asking the town to maintain a regular oversight and keep updated on the traffic issues in Butler Lane. One thing I didn't mention is the number of traffic movements. They're expecting 72 car movements in the peak hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. This is far more than there were when it was Aveling, because those people, they were getting trained. They'd park in the car park, stay there. They wouldn't leave until the afternoon. And the car park only holds 24 cars, something like that. 16. Well, it's 16 now. It was 24 with Aveling. So what I'm saying is it's going to be a much greater volume of traffic. It was already a bit of a problem with Aveling. This is going to be far worse. And I just wanted to give just an example slide of the sort of signage we think could be erected at both ends of the residential part of the laneway. So I hope I stayed within my time. Thank you for listening, and I'll take questions.
All right, thank you very much. Elected members, do you have any questions for Mr Fisher? Councillor Cruiser first and then Councillor Minson.
From the map, it seems like some people only have entry and exit from their houses. Some residents of Butler Lane only have entry and exit from their houses through Butler Lane, not through any other roads. Is that correct?
That's correct. The guidelines for development on laneways now say that you must have your frontage on the laneway. And so all the garages are on the laneway and there's no other way to exit. We do have a battle axe onto Shepperton Road, but it's only a footpath for taking the bins out. There's nothing wide enough to drive a car down.
Councillor Minson.
Thank you. Thank you for the deputation. Question just on your experience in the past when it was operating as a training facility. Were you finding people in preference were going one way down Butler Lane, southeast, or were they principally going northwest?
I mostly saw them coming in the morning, so that means they would be going to the northwest. They'd be coming from Boulder Street. Whether they exited that way in the afternoon, I don't know, because I wasn't there. But I used to see them coming in the morning. And although I discussed this with the people at Aveling and they said they were telling people not to do it, they were still doing it. And in those days, the traffic wasn't half as bad. It got much worse after they closed the railway line, and it hasn't really improved even now they've reopened it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from elected members? Councillor Biondi.
Through the chair. I've just had a look at the aerial and I can see that there's some speed humps in the laneway. Do you find that those effectively slow people down or help in terms of the safety aspects of cars travelling north and south along that laneway?
Not really. Some people slow down. Everyone slows down for the speed bumps. The problem is they speed up in between. So they're still going at a reasonable rate. I would say, 30 kilometres an hour or more sometimes. So I don't think it has much impact. And also, it's not just the speed, it's the volume of traffic that we're expecting. It's going to cause... The more volume of traffic there is, obviously, the more chance there is of someone colliding. And also, they're not being residents of the laneway. They're not aware of the difficulties of coming out. We're all aware, so we'll take extra care when passing people's driveways in case they're pulling out. But other people probably won't.
I have a question, Mr. Fisher. What you presented from the RTIS, you mentioned there's going to be a barrier installed on the median strip that will prevent right turns into Butler Lane.
Or out of.
And so my expectation is that's a barrier that you understand will be installed immediately opposite the entrance to Butler Lane in the middle of Miller Street.
That's what I was given to understand,
And
yes.
you're not sure of the proposed length of that? Because I think you're aware that we've been working on an upgrade to the intersection at Miller Street and Shepparton Road for some time with main roads. It's unfortunately pretty bogged down, but we're getting there. Is that your understanding?
I understood that was part of the intersection upgrade. I'm just trying to remember where I found this out. I think it was probably in discussions with the planning officer.
All right, because we might be able to follow that up. But I wanted to ask you, were that to be the case and were a barrier to be installed there, what impact do you think that's likely to have on the residents of your lane? Because they too will be adversely impacted if they can only go in and out from one direction.
Yeah, so that means if we wanted to turn right into Miller Street, we'd have to go the opposite way down to Boulder Street. And of course, the extra problem there is that could bring us into opposition with the people coming into the childcare centre if we wanted to go out that way. And in addition, my neighbour can't turn right out of his garage because of the fencing. He would have to turn left into Miller Street, left into Shepparton, left into Boulder, left into Carnarvon, and then right into Miller, instead of just going right into Miller as he would now.
All right, thank you. I think I've made a note of that. Are there any other questions from elected members? No, there appears to be no other questions, but thank you so much. As I said before, the result of your petition being received, and we've now heard your deputation, we'll go through the town staff for them to write a report on it. And my expectation would be they've heard some of the very real challenges that you've outlined about what's being proposed, and we'll be eager to see what the town staff recommend to council with regards to your petition requests. I think, is that Ms Clark? Did you wish to say something?
Thank you.
Yes.
Joanne Clark, Victoria Park East. I just wanted to make two comments as to why it's really important that we have some signage in place on the residential part of the lane. The first issue is if we don't have something in place at the opening of the childcare centre, patrons' expectations may be that they can use the lane, which they at this point would be able to do. If down the track it becomes such an issue and council then approves signage to go in, it then becomes a no entry issue. Patrons are going to say, but why? Why have things changed? Expectations have changed. We're now being put at a disadvantage because we have to go out into the busy Miller Street. So putting this mitigation strategy in place now gives patrons, as soon as the childcare opens, the understanding that the residential part of the lane is not suitable for access. And the other point that I wanted to make, installing signage will also enable the centre management to direct patrons on the required entry and exit directions to the centre. And without something like that being in place, they won't have that capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. So that concludes our deputations. Moving along now, item 10, method of dealing with the gender business. The recommendation is that the following items are to be adopted by exception resolution and the remaining items will be dealt with separately. For the benefit of elected members, I'm going to read the item numbers from the agenda that are proposed to be dealt with by exception resolution. If you have a desire to have one of these items removed from the exception resolution list, you'll need to tell me at the end before it's moved, seconded and agreed upon. So the items for exception resolution are 11.1 Council Resolution Status Report October 2025, 11.2 2025 Policy Review, 12.3 Adoption of Library Services Strategy, 12.4 Adoption of Arts and Culture Strategy, 12.5 Endorsement to advertise the Draft Community Group and Club Development Plan, 13.1 Aqualife Cafe Request by Tenant for Early Surrender of Lease, 13.3 Elizabeth Bailey Precinct Tenure Documentation Request by Black Oak for Consent Cafe Bakery Sublease, 14.1 Financial Statements September 2025, 14.2 Statement of Accounts September 2025, 15.1 Audit Update Report October 2025, 15.2 Corporate Business Plan Quarter 1 Progress Report July to September 2025, 15.3 Final Audit Report Assessment of Operational Risk, and 15.4 is the 2024-2025 Interim Audit. I'm seeking a mover and a seconder for this recommendation, please. That's moved Councillor Minson, seconded Deputy Mayor Miles. Is there any dissent from elected members? No, I'm not seeing any dissent, so declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11 is the Chief Executive Officer reports. We've already dealt with item 11.1 and 11.2 under exception resolution. Brings us now to 11.3, which is Policy 022, Elected Member Professional Development. This is an absolute majority item for elected members. The recommendation here is that Council amends Policy P022, Elected Member Professional Development, as contained in Attachment 1. Seeking a mover and a seconder, please. That's moved myself, Mayor Vernon, seconded Councillor Anderson. Going to formally ask, is there any dissent? There being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 12 is the Chief Community Planner reports. We have a number of items here. 12.1 Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club Business Case and Transition to Australian Hockey Centre. The recommendation for this appears at pages 19 to 20 on the agenda. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the following recommendations. A, the option to relocate the full club operations of Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club within the new 3-storey grandstand at the Australian Hockey Centre, subject to ongoing negotiations with Hockey WA to secure suitable access to synthetic turf to support all club training, development and competition commitments. B, that the town, in partnership with the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club, engages with Hockey WA as the primary leaseholder to secure the agreement for the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club to transition to the Australian Hockey Centre and associated synthetic turf provision as an anchor tenant on the site. C, that the town enters into dialogue with Hockey WA to determine the heads of terms in relation to a lease agreement between Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club and Hockey WA. D, that the financial model be reviewed on an ongoing basis to ensure the financial viability of Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club is maintained throughout the process. E, that the town assists Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club to develop a funding strategy to promote the long-term future of the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club at the Australian Hockey Centre. F, that subject to negotiations with Hockey WA not providing a suitable solution for Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club, the town retain the option to develop a synthetic turf and grass pitch with associated infrastructure at Charles Paterson Reserve. And 2, endorses transfer of the management of the unspent 2020 WA State Election Commitment Grant totalling $250,000 for planning and or construction of a synthetic turf for the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club to the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club to enable them to proactively and strategically address transitional planning for their move to the Australian Hockey Centre. I am seeking a mover and a seconder, please, for the officer's recommendation. That is moved by myself, Mayor Vernon, seconded Councillor Minson. I am going to speak very briefly on this. I'm very pleased to see that after a long period of time and extensive collaboration and work with the Victoria Park Xavier Hockey Club, that the town has been able to assist the club to position itself well to take up a significant tenancy on the site of what will be the new Australian High Performance Hockey Centre at Curtin University, part of a $130 million redevelopment by the state and federal government on that site. This has not been without its challenges. Clearly, when you have a local community hockey club that is seeking to ensure that it has appropriate opportunities at a high-performance centre that will be the home of the Australian hockey team for men and women, a premier level training facility, and also the host for both national and international events. Having the local community hockey club based there certainly presents, as I say, some challenges for them. It was in 2020 when the Council of the Day endorsed the Higgins Park Master Plan, which saw a focus for football go to Higgins Park, that we subsequently endorsed the creation of a hockey working group to try to, once and for all, bring to life the local hockey club's desire for a synthetic turf facility for itself somewhere within the town of Victoria Park. I think the club have been grateful for the opportunity to be part of that working group and to work with the town staff and vice versa on planning for their future. So here we are, where it now appears in the next couple of years the new high performance centre will be built, and hopefully our hockey club will be able to finalise their negotiations to be located there. The officer's recommendation does notably reserve an option, and only an option in my view, to develop a synthetic turf and grass pitch associated with infrastructure at the other location named in the business case, namely a portion of Charles Paterson Reserve. But clearly a great deal of work would need to be done if that solution were to eventuate in the future. It's also important that the hockey club, in my view, get access to the $250,000 commitment that was made to them by the former member for Victoria Park, Ben Wyatt, at a previous election cycle. That will enable them to go forward with their transition. So I urge everyone to please consider the officer's recommendation positively. Councillor Minson, as a seconder, do you wish to be heard?
No, thank you, Mayor. Nothing to add.
I'm going to ask formally, is there any dissent to the officer's recommendation? Not seeing any indication of dissent, so on that basis, I'll declare the item is carried unanimously. Thank you. So we now come to item 12.2, which is request to sign MRS Form 1 Perth Entertainment and Sporting Precinct. In accordance with our meeting procedures, local law, I wish to test an alternate motion to the officer's recommendation and to test it ahead of the officer's recommendation. I'm now going to proceed to read out that alternate motion. The alternate motion for item 12.2 is as follows: that Council 1 refuses to consent to the signing of the MRS Form 1 application for development approval for portions of the Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive road reserves under the care, control and management of the Town of Victoria Park pursuant to the Land Administration Act 1997, to be developed and used as part of a multi-use track for motorsports events or other purposes within the Perth Entertainment and Sporting Precinct. 2, directs the Chief Executive Officer not to sign the MRS Form 1 application for development approval at attachment 12.2.2 on behalf of the Town of Victoria Park for the development of those portions of the Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive road reserves forming part of the PESP pursuant to any delegated authority or power granted to the CEO by this council or otherwise. And 3, requests the Chief Executive Officer to write to OMTID, which is the Office of Major Transport Infrastructure Delivery, seeking further information regarding the track design, the nature and extent of modifications to Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive, the proposed asset management plans for both roads, the expected duration of public road closures, including lead-up and post-event periods, for the proposed works as outlined in attachment 12.2.1. I am now going to outline in brief my reasons. Reasons are consent to the signing of the MRS Form 1 application for development approval will enable the WA Government to proceed with the development application to the WA Planning Commission for approval to develop and use portions of the Victoria Park Drive and Camfield Drive road reserves as part of a multi-use track for motorsports events as part of the PESP. The inclusion of a multi-use track and associated building for motorsports events in the PESP is contrary to Council's Resolutions number 7 of 2025 and Resolution number 164 of 2025, opposing a motorsport street circuit racetrack at Burswood Park. Therefore, consenting to the signing of the MRS Form 1 will be contrary to Council's stated position. Having given my reasons, I'm now seeking a seconder for my alternate motion. Thank you. I understand it's been seconded by Councillor Melrosa. So I'll speak very, very briefly on this because I believe that the reasons that I have provided are more than sufficient. Council has a well-documented position in relation to opposition of the construction of a motorsport street circuit, otherwise known as a racetrack, at Burswood Park. I don't think it will come as any surprise to anyone that Council has been able to maintain that position since February and indeed consolidated it in August of this year when we adopted our priorities for advocacy in the 2025-2026 year, to include continuing opposition to the racetrack. Whilst it may be said, as indeed it appears to be said in the officer's recommendation, that consent to the signing of the MRS Form 1 application for development need not be construed as consent to the project overall, but rather merely a functional requirement in order to allow the state government to progress with their plans for submitting a development application to the WA Planning Commission for the construction of a multi-use track for motorsports events at Burswood Park. It is my view that that is exactly what this council would be doing if we were to consent to the signing of that form. It is stated to be an enabling requirement. So, in light of our council's resolutions and stated position, I cannot see how this council could ever endorse enabling a step that would allow the government to proceed with its plan for a racetrack construction at Burswood Park. It is certainly the case that what was presented in attachment 12.2.1, which is a letter from OMTID to the town requesting consent to the signing of the MRS Form 1, contains, in my view, very little detail about what is the likely track that will be constructed at Burswood Park, let alone the role that a portion of Victoria Park Drive, utilised every day by members of our residential community at the Burswood Peninsula, let alone visitors to the Burswood Peninsula Precinct, would be using that road for, let alone what the Camfield Drive would be used for as part of the track. And again, the Camfield Drive is used by our residential community and visitors alike to access all of the current entertainment facilities at the Burswood Park. So there is much that we don't know, and yet we were being asked to simply consent, and all will be well, and you can take up your objections at a later stage when the development application is finally submitted. I don't consider that to be an acceptable way to engage with a local government for what is effectively seeking landowner consent for the use of a portion of 2 of our roads in that particular area to be converted into a racetrack at a particular time of the year. So for those reasons, I was of the view that I could not support the officer's recommendation, and an alternate motion was the appropriate way to go. So I hope elected members will consider supporting my alternate motion. Councillor Melrosa, as a seconder, you wish to be heard?
Yes, please. Thank you for bringing the alternate motion, Mayor. I did write some things. I thought this was one of those ones that we want to get the words right. In my view, it's a matter of principle not to authorise the CEO to sign this form, and it's perhaps telling that the CEO wished to defer this to Council, and I respect that decision. I think it's the right one. The power of a signature in any context or in any form should never be underestimated. It is, after all, a universally recognised symbol of agreement. Some of the things Council should have regard to when it makes its decisions are to ensure they are in accordance with the community interest and previous Council resolutions. Both community interest and past resolutions demonstrate a clear lack of support for this proposal. I acknowledge that taking this position could be viewed as flexing or playing hardball, and by doing so, it's only likely to delay what the pessimists would consider as inevitable. But as a council, we need to do what is expected of us by our community and in line with what we know to be right. The right thing to do in this instance is to let the state government find an alternative pathway by not authorising the CEO to sign the DA form. And any delay, this gives more time to the people working hard in the community and in the town to prevent this project from occurring, and that's valuable time. Also, perhaps maybe valuable time for more cracks to appear in the current government's facade that surrounds this project. As we've seen from the courageous commentary out of the federal member for Perth, that support for this project is really not as strong as everyone's being led on to believe. And is the member for Perth really the only one who thinks this? I doubt it. I think many members of politics aren't able to speak freely on this issue. So I think more pressure, more time, more niggling, we'll start to see cables snapping and trains derailing, perhaps. An unfortunate day yesterday. And look, we all know that in this time in our lives, the money for a racetrack is better spent in other more pressing areas of need. And maybe we are making things difficult for the government by not authorising this signature. But seriously, that is exactly the type of pressure that is required to be put on the state government. And I'm not certainly willing to make it any easier, and I urge other councillors not to either. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Melrosa. So I am going to ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak against the alternate motion. This is in accordance with our meeting procedures. This is that opportunity. Not seeing any indication. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in relation to the matter? I am going to give elected members an opportunity to do that. Councillor Biondi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for bringing the alternate motion. My view is that we should support the alternate motion. My view is a little bit different, the reasons behind that, and I just want to take a moment to outline why. I don't believe that this instrument of of authorisation actually gives power to the CEO. My view is quite different. So the way that the delegation reads, it applies only to Crown roads where development is consistent with the use of that road. So the examples that the instrument of authorisation talks about is verandas, awnings, curbing, minor encroachments, which make the intent of this proposal quite different to what the instrument of delegation talks about. I don't believe the instrument of authorisation was ever intended to authorise large-scale commercial activities or the repurposing of a public road into an FIA standard motorsport racetrack. A road is land dedicated to the ordinary passage of the public. It's not fenced off. It's not for ticketed events or exclusive commercial operations. So in my view, to sign the MRS Form 1 would not be consistent with the ordinary definition of a road. Having said that though, as well, as a town planner myself, I would never instruct a client to sign a development application form without having an understanding of the actual proposal itself. It's been made clear that we don't know the full impact or extent. Often what sits behind development applications, and Councillor Melrose would know this, and many around this table would know, that there would be supporting documentation such as noise assessments, amenity impact documents, environmental assessments, and we simply would have to have ordinarily prepared that ahead of even signing and submitting a development application. And it is my view that it is my understanding that has not been done, and it is being asked of us for an improper or an ulterior purpose. So the Minister, in my view, does actually have the power to sign this application. Just because a delegation does exist doesn't mean the Minister has to use it. So the Minister would obviously be aware, or the state government would be aware of the town's historical position on this matter. And in putting this to us, I have to ask the question, why? It is my view, and I implore other councillors to stand firm with the historical decisions made by the town of Victoria Park to demonstrate courage, and I encourage other councillors to take steps to be consistent with our historical decisions and the community's expectations. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Biondi. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in relation to this item? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief, but although the CEO had delegated authority, I'm really pleased to see that the report was brought to Council. Given Council's stated position, I think it gives more strength to the alternate motion to come to Council and for us to make this decision. And also it sends a strong message to our community that we are not giving up and that we will continue to support the passion that is stirring within our community and Council's decision. And this reiterates that again. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in relation to the matter? No? All right. Well, if there's no one else who wishes to speak, I'm going to formally ask at this point, is there any dissent to the alternate motion? No? There being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for considering the alternate motion. We now move on to the remainder of the items. In item 12, 12.3, 4 and 5 have all been adopted by exception resolution. That brings those to an end. Item 13 is the Chief Operations Officer reports. Item 13.1 has already been dealt with by exception resolution. It does bring us to item 13.2, which is Charles Paterson Park, authority to invite expressions of interest for sporting and recreational use. The recommendation of council, or the recommendation from the town, is that Council 1 authorises the Chief Executive Officer to invite expressions of interest for a 5 + 5 year ground lease over a portion of Lot 40, Charles Paterson Park, Burswood, for the purpose of developing and operating a sporting or recreational facility that activates the park and delivers community benefit on terms compliant with Policy 310, leasing and licensing, provided that no redevelopment clause will apply during the initial 5-year term. And 2, request the CEO to present a further report to Council outlining the outcomes of the expression of interest process for consideration prior to any future lease being entered into. Can I seek a mover and a seconder, please, for the officer's recommendation? So that's been moved by Councillor Cruiser and seconded by Councillor Anderson. Councillor Cruiser, as the mover, do you wish to be heard?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say briefly that it's great to see that the staff are considering different possible uses for this. In my opinion, having an open expression of interest process that then comes back to council seems like a fair and transparent way for us to manage potential uses of this space, rather than it being more of a closed process in discussion with a particular group or a particular sport that are interested in using that space. And so that's why I'm going to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, as the seconder, do you wish to be heard?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I'm going to formally ask, is there dissent to the officer's recommendation? Councillor Minson, you're indicating you're in dissent. Do you wish to speak at this time?
Briefly. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I am in dissent with the current proposal as it stands. Not that I'm against, I guess, leasing of any kind of option to lease this area, just with the amount of detail and presented to me at this moment, I'm not comfortable going to market. I see that there's a lot of opportunity for that park in the future, and a potential, racket sport development with kind of an unknown building layout and impact to the park. I'm not comfortable at this stage to kind of proceed. I'd like to see further detail presented to council before we'd go out to market, and just acknowledging that there are still, I guess, a few things to develop in the area. There's a lot of high density development happening surrounding that park, so to progress down a road of quite a niche kind of sport, and to take up a significant portion of that lot, to me doesn't seem that we've conducted enough planning to be in that position to go forward from here, and also acknowledging that it is still a preferred or an option that we are to retain if the hockey situation with the Xavier Park Hockey Club doesn't go ahead at the Australian Hockey Centre, that this would also be a location that we'd like to potentially use in the future, so they're potentially we're creating a clash for ourselves there. That's all I'd like to say at this moment. So thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you. Is there someone who now wishes to speak in favour of the officer's recommendation? If there's no one who wishes to speak in favour, then I'll call for anyone who wishes to speak against. I'm looking to speak against, so I'll do that now. I oppose the officer's recommendation for a number of reasons. As stated in the report, the public open space strategy of the town in 2019 recommends that this site be retained as public open space with a master plan to guide future upgrades and recreational use. Again, as the report notes, the social infrastructure strategy of council for 2022 recommends preparing a concept plan for Charles Paterson Park to guide provision of sporting fields to service Burswood South and adjacent place planning areas, including the Burswood Peninsula. Charles Paterson Park forms part of a broader open space network connecting to the Swan River foreshore and adjacent local centres, where medium to high density residential and mixed-use developments are forecast to be constructed in the future. Since 2019, there has been a lot of movement within the town regarding future redevelopment of various sporting facilities, including, for example, the one we heard about tonight, the State Hockey Centre at Curtin University, indeed the State Tennis Centre at Burswood Park, Burswood Point around Belmont Park, and now the Perth Entertainment Sporting Precinct also for Burswood Park. I think we need to proceed to develop the master plan that the public open space strategy and the social infrastructure strategy encourages us to do, or at least at concept plan level for the future use of this park, and in the meantime retain it as open space until such time as our community gets consulted via master planning process. I say this not on the basis that I have any difficulties with the fact that the town has received expressions of interest to date from people who are interested in perhaps constructing at their own cost future sporting facilities on this relatively smallish apron of public space. However, I would not want to send a message to the wider public, and especially those who are interested in corporate development of sporting sites, that we would be entertaining them to do work in putting forward a proposal to us that ultimately might be inconsistent with our broader planning framework, particularly parts of the planning framework that we haven't yet done. I don't believe it makes good sense to be inviting public expressions of interest from private operators, whether they're wishing to develop sports facilities for niche sports or indeed for more popular sports on parklands before we've resolved even the needs of the many sporting community clubs that exist within our town, all of whom elected members will be familiar with, having received various requests and lobbying from all of them over a period of time as to how much they would like to see their own facilities upgraded. And whilst this is not a proposal that we would go to market for private operators to come in and upgrade our existing facilities for our existing clubs, it is the case that sporting clubs in the town would be perhaps right to point to us and say, why are you seeking a focus on introducing new sports into the town when we do have a large number of sporting facilities that are ageing, that are in need of upgrade, redevelopment or replacement? And I think it's important that we consult with our community on their aspirations for just how much intensity of use they want to see in particular areas. In an area like Burswood South, where we have a plan, the Burswood South Streetscape Improvement Plan, that will see major changes to that particular road to enhance and to support the future residential medium to high density developments that we want to see in the area, it's important that we think about the future residents as much as the current ones and how much they would like to see happening on their doorstep. So whilst I think it is great that there are people out there in the world who are interested in our patch, and they might be interested in some of our public open spaces, I think we owe it to ourselves for consistency that we follow the recommendations of endorsed strategies of council in the public open space strategy and the social infrastructure strategy. So at this point in time, I can't support the officer's recommendation. Is there now someone who wishes to speak in favour of the officer recommendation? Councillor Cruiser, as the mover, you've already spoken. Do you have a question? Yes?
Thank you. Could I please ask through the chair, if this recommendation was accepted and the EOI process was opened, would we be bound to accept one of the potential applicants as a lease?
I can answer that question for you, Councillor Crozer. No, we wouldn't. If there was a proposal, it would come back to council under our policy, and so it's always open to council to say yes or no to any proposal it receives.
And would there be anything excluding existing sporting clubs from entering an EOI?
No, not if they thought they were able to do so.
Also, could I please get an opinion from our staff about whether this EOI process would be likely to work actively in opposition to existing master plans for the area?
Direct that question to the Chief Community Planner, Mr. Doy.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Thanks for the question. The answer would be no at the moment, because there is no master planning or concept planning that's been prepared for Charles Paterson Reserve. The only identification that has potential to, the only thing that has the potential to occur is the option that was mentioned in the previous item in 12.1, although that's identified on the portion of Charles Paterson Reserve that this item does not relate to. That's to the northern portion of Charles Paterson Reserve.
And a further question, again, for our staff. What is, or perhaps for you with your own experience, what is the usual time frame from start to finish for completing a master master plan, or do we have a couple of examples?
Mr. Doy.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Thanks for the question. Yeah, we have local examples in the town of Victoria Park. So if I think about the Higgins Park master plan, which I would say would be a larger and more complex project than Charles Paterson, I would think. That was a 12 to 18 month process to complete that master plan.
So now asking, is there someone who wishes to speak in favour? Anyone wish to speak against? If there's no one else who wishes to speak, I'll go to the mover to close. Councillor Cruiser.
Thank you. I would like to say that I do accept that there are some good reasons to go against this recommendation, but at the same time, it feels to me like opening this EOI process doesn't commit us to accepting any of those expressions of interest or any of those applications. It is a relatively small portion of area within an area that has quite a few open spaces. Council will have the opportunity to decide, for example, how permanent some of those expressions of interest might be in terms of their impact on the area, in terms of whether or not they propose specific buildings, in terms of the length of the lease that they're interested in. And I'm also aware that in terms of our planning resources and the time that we have available for that, it often seems to take us quite a while to go through the full process of consultation and planning to develop a master plan. So it might be nice to consider at least activating this small portion of public space as we go through that process. And we can, as we go through that, also consider whether or not the leases that we might consider would clash with the various ideas that are coming forward around that. And so that's why I will be voting for the officer's recommendation.
All right, thank you. Elected members, if you can now cast your votes, please. So it looks like the officer's recommendation is passed. Those in favour, Deputy Mayor Miles, Councillor Ingram, Councillor Melrosa, Councillor Gordon-Manley and Councillor Cruiser. Those against, myself, Mayor Vernon, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Biondi and Councillor Minson. So declare the officer's recommendation has been carried. Item 13.3 has already been dealt with by way of exception resolution. Item 14 is the Chief Financial Officer reports. 14.1 and 14.2 have been dealt with by exception resolution. Item 15 is the committee reports. All four items 15.1, 15.2, 15.3 and 15.4 have been dealt with by way of exception resolution. Item 16 is applications for leave of absence. The recommendation is that Council 1 approves the leave of absence for Councillor Sky Crozer for the dates 22 December 2025 to 22 January 2026 inclusive, and 2, a leave of absence for Councillor Andra Biondi for the dates 21 December 2025 to 31 January 2026 inclusive. And I seek a mover and seconder please for that item. That's moved Councillor Ingram, seconded Councillor Gordon-Manley. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 17, motion of which previous notice has been given. There is none. Item 18, questions from members without notice. Do we have questions from elected members without notice? No. In that case, we'll move... Oh, Councillor Melrosa. A bit quicker off the mark next time, please, Councillor Melrosa.
Sure. Absolutely. Just one quick question about the 40 km/h speed signs that were on Archer Street and were removed. What's the reason for that?
I'm going to direct that question to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms Libicus.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Melrosa. That was, they were put in place temporarily to facilitate the rectification work on the ramps.
May I quiz the question again?
You can rephrase the question, yes?
This is what location are you referring to with the ramps?
Ms Lobicus? I think, Councillor Melrosa, this is a reference to the upgraded section at the intersection between Archer Street and Mars Street, where there's a slight raising of the road surface, kind of like a raised plateau, but not completely.
Yeah,
and that was closed off for rectification works.
That's not what my
All right,
question's about.
so how long ago were these 40-kilometre-an-hour signs up that you're referring to?
They've been up since the Archer Street Carlisle train station precinct was open, and they've been removed only recently, maybe a week or two ago, and the location of them was between Raleigh Street and the train station.
Between Raleigh Street and the train station. So, Ms Lobicus, is that something you need to take on notice?
I will take that on notice.
Yeah, we'll take that on notice, Councillor Melrosa. Are there any other questions from elected members without notice? No, in that case, we'll move to item 19, which is new business of an urgent nature introduced by a decision of the meeting. So there is an item. It is a notice of motion from myself. It has been circulated amongst elected members, and I am just doing a very small tidying up of the wording to align with the meeting procedures, and then I will read it out. Right. All right, I've just sent through the updated wording to governance. So I wish to move this motion that Council 1 approves this motion being brought as new business of an urgent nature without notice to be decided upon in accordance with Clause 24 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019 as a case of extreme urgency or other special circumstances. 2, request the Chief Executive Officer to conduct an investigation into the removal of trees at Elizabeth Bailey Park that were not authorised under the tree removal plan approved by Council for the Park Redevelopment Upgrade Project. And 3, request the Chief Executive Officer to report to the Ordinary Council meeting in February 2026 as to the outcome of the investigation. In short order, the reasons are: on 10 November 2025, the town published a statement on its website and social media advising that a review of landscaping and construction works associated with the Elizabeth Bailey Park upgrade had shown that a number of trees were not adequately protected during the construction, resulting in the removal of more trees than originally planned. Council expects the highest standards of governance, compliance and environmental stewardship in all the town's operations and project management. The circumstances surrounding these tree removals requires a thorough and transparent investigation to determine how this was able to occur, who was responsible and what procedural gaps contributed to this outcome. Whilst the town has accepted full responsibility in the public statement, Council still needs to fully understand the number and species of trees that were removed without authorisation, when and why each of these trees were removed, who removed them, the town's systems and processes that are required to be followed prior to tree removal, whether the town's systems and processes were followed prior to removal, and if not, why not, the parties responsible for non-compliance in the tree removal, i.e. the contractor of the town's project management supervision of this project, recommendations to mitigate the tree losses, address the non-compliance and to ensure compliance with town systems and processes to prevent unauthorised tree removals in future, how and when a replacement tree planting program will be developed for the park. In the interests of good governance and accountability, it's imperative that the town completes its investigation into how and why this occurred as soon as possible, with the outcome being reported to Council in full, including the steps being taken to rectify the situation, address any non-compliance and prevent a recurrence in future projects. A public report to Council will ensure accountability to our community. As this matter arose after the preparation of the agenda for November was presented to Council on 4 November, as presiding member I consider that the matter is of such importance and urgency that it's unable to be dealt with administratively by the town, and it must be dealt with by Council before the December OCM in order to ensure the timely conduct of the investigation and a prompt report to Council at its first meeting in 2026. So that is the motion that I bring. I now need to ask, is there someone who will second the motion, please? That's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Miles, so thank you. What I am now going to do is ask elected members for you to indicate to me, do you need me to put each of the 3 points of this notice of motion separately to you for voting on, or are you content to vote on it as one lot? So if anyone requires it to be put separately, you need to indicate to me and I'll put it separately, but if no one requires any of the points to be put separately, then I'll put it together. Not seeing any indication from anyone that you require the particular points of this to be put separately. So on that basis, and the reason I ask you that is because it is important that the first point of this motion is the one that complies with clause 24, which is that Council needs to approve this motion being brought forward in these circumstances. And then thereafter, points 2 and 3 are the substantive point relating to the investigation and the subsequent report. So that's the reason for me asking you the question. So if anyone requires it to be put separately, this is the chance to let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move forward. So there being no indication, I will put the motion in its entirety. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll just briefly say it is a matter of some deep disappointment to Council, the town itself, and our community that there has been a loss of trees at Elizabeth Bailey Park's upgrade. That is a high value, high profile development for the town, the largest one that we have worked on in a very long time. And clearly, in this instance, there are things that we need to identify about the systems and processes that we understood were in place. We need to understand what precisely has happened above and beyond the information contained in the statement released to the public, and it will be very useful for the town to introspectively look at its own systems and processes during the course of an investigation. It is the case that last week, on Tuesday, I wrote an email to the CEO following on from the public statement which I authorised to be made on Monday the 10th of November to inquire as to whether the town would provide a full investigation and a report to elected members. On Friday last week, the 14th of November, I received a response to that which did not indicate to me whether a notice of motion would be required to be placed before elected members, and I formed the view that it would be the case, that would need to occur since there wasn't an indication that the town would be providing such a report through a council mechanism. So hence the reason for bringing this on, and as for the timing of it, I wanted the resolution to hopefully be passed tonight so the town would have plenty of time between now and the beginning of February next year, when there is a next council meeting coming, to have both completed the investigation and be in a position to report to council. And I spoke with the CEO earlier today to ask him if that timeframe was suitable for the administration, and he indicated to me that it would be. If I had put this up as a normal notice of motion and waited till the December meeting, it would have meant technically that the town staff would not have needed to have acted on it until such a resolution was passed in the second week of December. So I wanted to do it now and not wait any further. And this way I consider there is ample time to finish investigations and to provide that report, which I think will give our community the clarity that they would like. And it is part of our accountability and transparency, and we heard tonight from members of the public during public statement time, as well as indeed public question time, that they have overriding issues and somewhat of a loss of trust in us with regards to this. So we owe it to them to bring something forward as soon as we possibly can. So that's me speaking on it. Deputy Mayor Miles, did you wish to speak on the matter as seconder?
Just to say that I agree with everything that you've said and fully support this.
Thank you. I'm going to formally ask, is there any dissent? No, there being no dissent, declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues on council for considering that at short notice. I realise it's not always convenient to receive notices like this at short notice, but sometimes that is what happens in local government land. Item 20 on the agenda is public question time, which I now formally open at 8:44 p.m. Is there anyone in the public gallery who wishes to ask a question at this time? Getting an indication of no's all around, so on that basis I will close public question time at 8:44 p.m. Item 21 is public statement time, which again I open at 8:44 p.m. Is there any member of the public gallery who would wish to make a statement? No, there are indications that no one wishes to do that, so at 8:45 p.m. I will close public statement time. Item 22 is meeting closed to the public. I'm pleased to report there are no matters for which we need to close the meeting to the public, so no confidential matters. And there being no further business of this council meeting at 8:45 p.m, I declare the meeting is closed. Thank you everyone for your participation tonight, elected members, town staff, and to those who joined us in the public gallery and also those who are watching on live streaming at home. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, councillors, members of staff, members of the public. Please be upstanding for Her Worship Mayor Karen Vernon. Thank you.